Welcome, everybody. Happy new moon. Thought I'd do a video tonight in honor of the new moon. February is going to be an interesting month, I think. Going to be pretty exciting. And so I wanted to make this video just kind of something fun, something light, and just explore a topic that you don't really see a lot of people in this community ever really exploring. So I wanted to talk tonight about the upcoming sports ball tournament that is coming up on February 13th, which everyone knows as the Super Bowl. I'm not like a massive football fan. I know I've talked about how I like tennis, but honestly, in my opinion, most sports to some degree or another are scripted. And I find that interesting, the fact that people feel the need to script professional sports to the degree that they are. And a lot of people feel like maybe that's because there's a lot of money in it. And certainly if you go on Twitter, all I see are ads for sports betting apps. So sports betting is now this huge cash cow. So it makes sense that you would want to control outcomes and script games, but this has been going on for as long as I can remember. There's been an element of scripting to professional sports, which is interesting, right? Because professional sports are a huge part of the programming for most of us as we grow up into adulthood. Most people fall into that, at least men do, but more women these days are super into sports programming with their jerseys and painting their faces and going to the games and trying to be more like men and supporting these teams and getting into the mania and the hysteria surrounding sports. And football is probably the largest, the number one most watched sport in the United States would definitely be football. And the NFL makes billions of dollars every year. So it makes sense that it would be scripted. But there's a narrative that plays out over the season that's interesting to watch. And of course, the Super Bowl halftime show is every truther's favorite topic to just break down and go over how it's all a satanic ritual. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of videos coming out on that here in a couple of weeks. But the timing of the Super Bowl and kind of the teams that are playing in the Super Bowl, I found that I have a personal connection to this stuff. So I kind of wanted to show some connections and go over that a little bit. The first thing, though, I want to say thank you to my friend Alora. Alora, if you're watching this, she made me these handmade runes from stones that she picked up. And you can see an example of one of them. So she went out and found all of these stones, and they were hand painted by her with each of these runes. So just a wonderful gift. And she sent them in this red cloth here, right? So we've got those out, and we're going to do a little new moon ceremony tonight and dig into some more of the gene keys, which I'm also going to mention here in this video. So sports ball. Back in 2001, I think 2001, I lived for a short time in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was just actually talking about my experience there today, where I was fueling airplanes at the Cincinnati airport, which interestingly enough is in Kentucky, right across the river from Cincinnati. And my wife is also from Dayton, Ohio, but she spent time living in Cincinnati and Newport, Kentucky, which is the city right across the river. And probably around the same time, we were both there in the city of Cincinnati, but we never met. And then years later, when I'm living in Virginia and she's still in Dayton, we meet. So we have this connection to Ohio and to the city of Cincinnati. Cincinnati has a football team called the Bengals, and historically, they've just been one of the worst teams in football. In fact, the last time the Cincinnati Bengals went to a Super Bowl was in 1988. So I'm going to go over some strange connections that I'm seeing. So I'm going to share this here. So this was Super Bowl XXIII. And this was the end of the 1988 football season. So this particular Super Bowl took place in 1989 on, I believe it was January 22nd at Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami. And the Cincinnati Bengals played the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we just saw that I'm also from Kansas City. I was born and raised in Kansas City. So the Kansas City Chiefs just played the Cincinnati Bengals to see who was going to go to the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs lost. Now, I had been kind of paying attention this year. For whatever reason, the Bengals got a new quarterback, and he's a guy that is from Athens, Ohio, which is a place that we've gone to in the last couple of years. And it's interesting to me, the connections that I've just discovered in a very short period of time. And this is just for fun. And I'm almost like half serious about this, and it's a bit in jest, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. So I have this connection to both Kansas City and Cincinnati, and I was paying attention this year to how the Bengals were progressing as a team. And I really, for whatever reason, a part of me just wanted to pay attention to what they were doing and was kind of rooting for them to be in the Super Bowl. And I think I've gone on Facebook and several different people's posts and made comments that the Bengals were going to win the Super Bowl this year. And this was mid-season, before they were even really doing that well. And so I just threw it out there in jest, just playing around. But here they are. They have made it to the Super Bowl. And the last time they were there was 33 years ago, where they played the San Francisco 49ers, who also just lost to the LA Rams. So it's going to be the LA Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56. So we're going to pay attention to some of these numbers, because I'm going to go back and forth and play around with some of this stuff. And the Bengals lost 20-16, boo-hoo. And since then, they've been terrible. So now they're good, and they're going back. And this year, the Super Bowl is going to be on February 13th. And of course, today is February 1st. This is the new moon, and it's also the first day of the Chinese New Year. And this is the year of the tiger. So we've got the Bengal Tigers taking on the LA Rams. Interesting. February 13th is an interesting date. February 13th is the 44th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar. And if it was a leap year, it would be 322 days until the end of the year. But we're not in a leap year, so I can't really say that there's 322 days, but 321, close enough, right? We got the skull and bones, the 322, February 13th being the 44th day of the year. We're going to look at the number 44. I'm not going to go through all of this, but if you were to just go through and look at what happened on February 13th throughout history, you're going to see a lot of births and a lot of deaths and a lot of wars and a lot of treaties. One of those births, interestingly enough, on February 13th. Now, remember, it's the 44th day of the year. On February 13th in 1944, Jerry Springer was born. Jerry Springer was the 56th mayor of Cincinnati. Now Cincinnati is in the 56th Super Bowl. Something else that was interesting, it says that Springer was actually born in the London Underground station of Highgate, while the station was in use as a shelter from German bombing during World War II. Okay, so back in, I think it was 2013 or 2014, I decided to take a vacation by myself, and I went to London, and I was using, what is that? The app where you get to stay at other people's places. Anyway, I was using that app, and I was staying at a flat in London, in North London, in Highgate. And Highgate was the tube station that I actually took when I was going all over the city and when I would come back to stay in the flat. So I've actually been to this tube station, and I've been all over Highgate. It's a beautiful place. So he was actually born there. You know, and it goes on about him. Of course, he's related to all of these people who were, let's see, his parents, Margot and Richard Springer, owner of a shoe shop, were German Jewish refugees who escaped from Landsberg in Prussia, which is now Poland. His maternal grandmother was left behind and died in the gas vans in some extermination camp in Poland. Wow, man. And then his paternal grandmother, Selma Springer, died at the hospital in another concentration camp, which was occupied Czechoslovakia. And her brother, Selma's brother, Herman Eccles, was a renowned Berlin doctor who also died at a concentration camp. So, wow, Jerry's got some deep Holocaust roots here. So I thought that was interesting. Springer is, of course, he's 77 years old. So he was born in 44 and he's 77, born on February 13th, and the 56th mayor of Cincinnati. So another thing that's coming up just following the Super Bowl on February 15th is going to be the traditional celebration of Lupercalia. And if you don't know what Lupercalia is, it's a pastoral festival of ancient Rome observed annually on February 15th to purify the city, promoting health and fertility. But the interesting part about Lupercalia for me was the sacrifices that took place there. And at the altar, a male goat. And now I know that rams are not goats. Rams are actually male sheep, but we're going to get to that. So they would sacrifice a male goat, or goats, plural, and a dog. So I found that interesting that the dog and the goat were both sacrificed on Lupercalia. So I started to look around and I thought, goats, huh? Well, here we have just a Saturday, but I think it was officially announced today on February 1st on the new moon that Tom Brady, the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who most sports fans consider him to be the greatest of all time, or what is affectionately referred to as the GOAT. So Tom Brady is the GOAT, and he retires. In a sense, he was sacrificed, right? He won the Super Bowl last year. His team won at their own home stadium. Only that was, I think, the first time in history that an NFL team playing in the Super Bowl actually played in their own home stadium. This year is the second time in history. The LA Rams are playing in their own stadium in Los Angeles, California, at SoFi Stadium. Will the Rams win because of this? I don't know. We'll see. But I just thought it was interesting that Tom Brady announces his retirement today. The GOAT is gone. Okay. And something interesting about Tom Brady, he was also born in 1977. He was born in California. Let's see. And he was a 49ers fan, when he was growing up. So in 1988, when the 49ers played the Bengals, Tom Brady probably would have been old enough to attend that Super Bowl. Now, I don't know if he was there or not, but it's very interesting to me, the connections here. So he was picked late. He wasn't a big deal when he came out of college, but he's been in football for 22 seasons, and now he decides to retire. Also, he's number 12, so he's the GOAT and he's number 12. Remember that. That's gonna come up when I get to the gene key part of this. And so Brady's gone. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, yes, Super Bowl 2022 halftime lineup. Now, we had the GOAT, right? Here's our GOAT, Tom Brady. He's been sacrificed. He's retired. And now performing at the totally satanic halftime show is the dog, Snoop Dogg. So Lupercalia has the GOAT and the dog that they sacrifice. Now, Snoop Dogg is not the only person that's performing. There are going to be several other performers that will also be performing as well. One of them being Eminem. Now, Eminem is from Detroit, and we're going to get to that, the relevance of that in a second. But I just thought this was interesting that you have the GOAT and the dog, him performing the halftime show. And I think there's going to be some other rappers and R&B artists there. But it just doesn't stop there. So Howard Hessman, an actor who played Dr. Johnny Fever on WKRP in Cincinnati. I don't know if anyone's old enough here to remember that show, but I remember watching this when I was growing up as a kid. He died at 81 from complications from colon surgery. So he had ass surgery and he died. But he was a pop culture hero during that time, the late 70s, early 80s. So here you have a guy that was in this show, right, that kind of put Cincinnati on the map as far as entertainment goes. And he dies on Saturday, right before Brady retires, and right before, it was Sunday that the Bengals defeated the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl. So just before the Cincinnati Bengals go to the Super Bowl for the first time in 33 years, Johnny Fever dies. I just thought that was an interesting thing. We've got a lot of celebrities dying recently, so it's kind of hard to keep track of these things. He was born in the month of February, and he was actually born in Oregon, but he died in Los Angeles, California, where the Super Bowl is being played. And his most famous role was, of course, in WKRP in Cincinnati. I don't think there was any more interesting connections with him. Moving right along. 1988 was also when the Stafford Act was enacted. November 18th, where was it? November 23rd, 1988. So the Stafford Act was enacted in 1988. Now, the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams is actually, this is his first year playing in Los Angeles. He spent most of his career with the Detroit Lions. And remember, Eminem is also going to be at the halftime show, and he's from 8 Mile in Detroit. This is Matthew Stafford. He's the quarterback. And when was Matthew Stafford born? He was born February 7th, another February birth in 1988. The same year that the Stafford Act was enacted, Matthew Stafford was born. So he is now the quarterback for the Rams. And let's see, he was born, you got to be kidding me, in Tampa Bay, Florida. Wow. Okay. So interesting right there. And then, of course, the other guy for the Cincinnati Bengals is this guy right here, Joe Burrow, also known as Joey Franchise. he was born in Iowa, moved around to North Dakota, and then came to a place called Athens, Ohio. And Athens, Ohio is a place that I've driven through, been to several times. And it's a really nice city. It's surrounded by all these Indian mounds, and it's got a lot of ancient history and tradition. And so that's where this guy grew up and went to high school. And then, of course, he went to Ohio State, but he wasn't getting any play time. So they transferred him to LSU, where he was the starting quarterback and he won the Heisman. And all right, here he is in the NFL. So anyway, I found that very interesting. There's a lot of other connections, and I'm probably forgetting some things. I should have taken notes, but again, this is just for fun, and I didn't want it to be a super long video. So there was some connections with these numbers, which I thought was interesting. So I'm actually going to read, let me see, share my screen here. The gene keys I've been looking at here. So we got the 56th Super Bowl, and this gene key is dealing with the ring of trials. The ring of trials. It's also the shadow part of this. And I'm not going to go super into all of these gene keys because I don't want to make this video super long, and it's a very interesting exploration. I would encourage anyone to get a copy of this book and work through it yourself. But I highlighted a few key points here that I just wanted to mention. So the 56th shadow is distraction, also called the world mask, right? Within this interwoven geometry, the ring of trials, which includes the 12th, remember Tom Brady, number 12, the GOAT, 33rd, it's 33 years since the Bengals have been in a Super Bowl, and the 56th gene key, it's 56th Super Bowl, lays out the great dramatic script of evolution itself. And we were just talking about how sports itself is heavily scripted, especially American football. So let's see, what else does it say here? As the first of the three great trials, the 33rd shadow sets the pattern of your forgetting and conceals your true universal nature. Through this trial, you must journey through time and space across many incarnations until you come back to a memory of your greater self. The second trial, laid down by the 56th shadow, involves maintaining the illusion of your individuality by keeping you distracted through your five senses. Distraction greatly impedes evolution, but it is also finally brings you into a fuller appreciation of your own misery. In the modern world, we appear almost desperate to distract ourselves from who we really are. This was just really resonating with me as I looked this up. You will see below that the reactive nature of the 56th shadow is overstimulation, and this is the essence of distraction. As long as you are overstimulated through your senses, you do not have to feel your own discomfort. The shadow of distraction places a mask over the world, which prevents you from seeing life as it truly is. The 56th shadow ensures that you will be a victim of someone else's thinking. In other words, environmental conditioning, whether through your country's government, television, or media, or simply the belief systems of your religion, culture, teachers, parents, or peers. The world constantly tells you how you should think. It's not surprising that we are easily distracted from our real dreams and ideals as we get washed into the belief system of others. Distraction works in one of two ways. The most common type of distraction is outer distraction. In other words, the outer world of the senses distracts you from the inner world of feelings and the reality of the higher realms. In this respect, we tend to blame the outside world and the people in it for what happens to us, instead of realizing that our circumstances reflect our inner state. The well-known New Age epithet, "You create your own reality," is actually only half true. You do not create the actual events in your life, but you do influence their playing out through your attitude. When you blame people in the world around you, you set up a victim frequency pattern that reinforces itself over and over in your life. If on the other hand, you are able to accept everything that happens to you, regardless of whether you enjoy it or not, you set up a surrender frequency pattern that allows you to move through life with great fluidity and beauty, and your life reflects it. I mean, we're talking about the Super Bowl, we're talking about sports ball, and that is one of the biggest distractions, I think, for at least, I mean, all over the world. You have different sports that distract people in different countries, but in America, football is one of the biggest distractors of all. And I've been recently talking a lot about victimhood and how victimhood mentality affects us. And so it's interesting that, looking at the distraction of the Super Bowl has actually caused me to go inside and begin to look more at victimhood. And it's just, this is how things work, I'm projecting out, I'm looking at something external, and it's informing me about myself and things that I'm either working on or working through at the time, or things that I should probably address and work on. So then I went to the 33rd gene key, because it's been 33 years for these Bengals. And, it's their year. It's the year of the tiger. So, everything seems poised for them to win. In fact, Cincinnati, the local school district in Cincinnati, the public school district, has preemptively canceled all school the day after the Super Bowl, which is Monday, the 14th, on Valentine's Day. So now everybody in Cincinnati every kid that goes to public school gets the day off on Valentine's Day, whether or not the Bengals win. They've already canceled classes on that day. So I find that interesting. Also, the Jerry Springer being the 56th mayor, interesting connection. So we're looking at the 33rd gene key, which is, we're looking at 12, 33, and 56 as this ring of trials. And this is the mire of the Maya. This is about forgetting. The 33rd shadow is the great shadow of our forgetting. Since it is your memories that keep you in the state of forgetting, your greatest challenge in life is to see through your own illusion and thus slip through the net itself. How then do we ever escape this mad, paradoxical hall of mirrors when every desire we have serves only to tighten the net around us? Well, there is one desire that is the exception, the desire to remember yourself. This is the desire that the 33rd shadow conceals. The desire to escape the Maya begins your process of awakening, and for the first time begins to unwind your sanskaras instead of feeding them. So the 33rd is about forgetting. It's about keeping you into the illusion, but it's also about you waking up to this fact, right? And this ties in with the 56th gene key and how it's talking about distraction. Distraction is what keeps us in the illusion that we are in. And the 33rd gene key, or at least the shadow of this, the mire of the Maya, plays into that. I'm not saying that's what it means every time you see a 33, but it's certainly interesting that most media is a complete and total distraction these days. And that 33 is the number that shows up predominantly more than any other number. And it's usually associated with the false nature of the media itself and the illusion that we're living in. So I found all of these connections quite fascinating. The 33rd shadow, therefore, governs all of the endless cycles of existence and incarnation on this planet. It keeps you deeply asleep by concealing the past from you. Very, very interesting. Let's see. Let's move on to 44. And so I looked at 44 because 44 was a number that was coming up. Tom Brady is 44 years old. He was born in 1977. Springer was born in 1944. So I wanted to look and see what the 44th gene key was about. And it's the rise of the Illuminati, interference. And so I just highlighted this little portion here, and then I'll be done with the gene keys. The 44th shadow operates like a virus within the operating system of this master program, throwing the collective choreography out of synchronization. This creates both local and universal interference. You end up with dysfunctional families, businesses that create more imbalance than balance, governments with inappropriate leadership teams, and relationships that are never easy. The overall result is global chaos. It is exactly what we see today. However, there is one vital thing to understand. The master program cannot be wrong. If it appears to be doing something chaotic, it is in order to diagnose the problem, locate the virus, and reboot the entire system. So I thought this was interesting, talking about, the 56th gene key talked about masking the world, the world mask. Of course, they talk about the 44th gene key being like a virus. But it's not all just negative, right? Because within every shadow, there exists a gift that's underneath that shadow. That's that light underneath the darkness that's clouding it. And so our job is to look at those shadows, not to run away from them, not to externalize them and, put it on groups like the Illuminati and call it satanic. Our job is not to externalize our fear and our anxiety. It's to deal with that shadow, to face our fears, is to look at those parts of ourself that we've been externalizing. Because we were in victimhood, we externalize that so that we can have a boogeyman to scare us. So we can point at him and go, that person's evil, but I'm good, but I'm a victim of the evil man. But really, you're a victim of yourself when you're in victimhood, because you're actually the evil one, and you're also the good one. See, but you got to learn to balance these things within yourself. That's what I'm trying to do by working through these gene keys. But I just find it fascinating. On a cursory glance of some external distraction, it really just ties it back into the self and what's happening and what's being projected. So that's why I find sports ball and so many other things in the external world so interesting these days, is because when I look at it, it's like a mirror, and I'm looking into myself, and it causes me to go inward. But most people aren't doing that, because most people are still living in victimhood, and they are still angry at everything and afraid of everything, and they want to externalize and point fingers and label things as evil and make judgments on things. Maybe judgment's not the right word, but putting a label on something, like calling it evil, means that you don't have to explore that or look at it anymore, right? If it's a part of yourself and you put it outside of yourself and you give it a personality and an identity, and then you let it victimize you, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. We victimize ourselves endlessly over and over and over again. So anyway, I wanted to make this a short video, just kind of in jest and for fun, but it's interesting, right? How these connections are always there. when you go looking for them, you find them, and they ultimately lead you back to yourself, which is really where our attention and focus should always be. It's on doing that work within ourselves so that our spirit and our consciousness can evolve and progress. And we don't have to live in fear. People talk about wanting freedom. People saying we should mandate freedom. That's a ridiculous statement. How can you be free if someone has to mandate it for you? How are you free if you have to ask people permission to do things, or if you give your power to make decisions away to somebody else through voting? Oh, well, I voted. Yeah, you gave your power away. You gave your authority over yourself to somebody else to govern you. You're telling them, hey, I can't handle freedom. I can't handle sovereignty. I need you to victimize me. Please victimize me. Mandate me harder, daddy. I love these memes that are going around. And the trucker thing is a good example of the fact that people just can't handle that when somebody starts taking initiative and standing up for themselves. Whatever you think about the trucker thing, it really doesn't matter, because the natural outgrowth, the response from people just being themselves, that can't be scripted, and that really can't be controlled. We're seeing that right now play out, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I think there's so much negativity within this community that it's just time we just take a step back and, let's give it up for the truckers. Whatever the trucker thing is, if it's a psyop, it doesn't matter. What's coming out of it is what matters. How these people, normal, everyday individuals who are not part of a psyop, are reacting to it, how they're feeling, how it's inspiring them to stand up against tyranny, is a good thing, right? It's not a psyop if the ultimate result is beneficial to the majority of mankind. Anyway, I know most of you probably are not going to watch the sports ball tournament on February 13th. I think I'm going to watch it. I just want to see what will happen. I am predicting the Bengals to win. I don't know what that means. I don't think that the halftime show is going to be a satanic ritual, but it will certainly be telling, as we've seen with like the Olympic ceremonies and their foreshadowing. Certainly something to look at, but nothing to be afraid of or to call evil, right? Anyway, I hope you guys found some enjoyment in this, and I want to wish you a happy new moon. And Laura, thanks again for the runes. That was such a great gift. I'm going to cherish those. Anyway, till next time, guys.